Hey guys, welcome back to Middle Earth Monday. We are still on the Bree kind of mission scenario, fighting our way through getting all those miniatures ready for that. We of course have the hobbits already ready from previous scenarios, so we're just going to carry those guys on through. We've gotten a Strider done. We painted him up last week. We decided to go for the stealthy one. He looks awesome. Make sure you go back and check out that video. In today's video, we're going to tackle the personalities of Bree, so Barleyman and the Gatekeeper. Need to get painted up. They're kind of key figures in this scenario. Quite interesting pieces. Once again, they're pieces kind of like Tom Bombadil was a few weeks ago, where I'll get these guys built and painted, but then they may never see a table again just for this scenario, which I kind of find is a little bit bizarre. But I'm excited to get them done anyway, so they're off the backlist. They're a painted set, so that's going to be really good. I have some rather large 3D prints planned for the Bree scenario itself. The gatehouse is going to get printed up, and we're even going to print up the Prancing Pony and do a really large scale bit for the center of the table. So if those are all coming up in the next couple of weeks, hopefully you're excited to see those as well. Before I get into the video, as usual, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone out there that continues to support the channels in all the ways it is possible to do so. Watching the videos, making sure you're giving them likes if you enjoyed them, dropping comments if you have questions, and making sure you're subscribed to all three channels. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to how many people see each video and how quickly the channels grow. And then also, everyone out there who goes the extra mile supports over on Patreon. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. Without you guys, I literally couldn't continue doing what I'm doing. So thank you. I try and give back as much as possible with the Patreon. So you get extra videos, you get access to podcasts, you get access to private Discord server. We do painting competitions and showcase and all sorts of other bits and pieces over there. And we do monthly giveaways. This month, we are giving away this Mechanicum Army set. So if you want to be in with a chance of winning this set, post it anywhere in the world at my expense. All you need to do is be signed up to Patreon at any tier. Okay, with that all out of the way, let's dive in and get these personalities of Bree painted up. Okay, for this scenario, these are the two kind of like NPC characters that are required for this. They are, of course, the Innkeeper, Barleyman Butterbur, and the Gatekeeper, Harry Goatleaf. So obviously the one that says, I've got some nice comfy hobbit-sized beds. And then hobbits, 4 of them. These are 2 awesome characters, and they do play a pivotal role in the scene and in the scenario in which this particular thing is set. So actually, it was quite difficult for me to get my hands on these miniatures, and I am going to confess with you guys right now something. I've never really done this before, but I was really desperate. And funnily enough, it's kind of gone to waste now because they are actually back on the website. But I had to go to a third party and buy some like fake China cast versions of these guys. Because they were sold out for so many months, and I started to freak out that I wouldn't have them ready for the scenario. So I ordered them months ago on that, and it did take up until a couple of weeks ago for them to return to the website, but you know, the damage had already been done. I don't really condone that. Anyone out there who does, that's your business, that's totally fine. But for me, if a company produces a figure, then I feel like you should pay that company for that figure. That's just my personal beliefs. It's up to you. Okay, so when it comes to Barleyman Butterbur, we're going to start with him first. Obviously, he was sprayed black, then sprayed grey sear, the same as Mr. Goatleaf. Then we threw a Wildwood down on his boots. His trousers, apart from his kind of like wraps around his ankles. And then he's got like a waistcoat as well. It's done in the same kind of soft brown leather. So we did that in Wildwood as well. Then we grabbed some skeleton horde. We did the wraps around his legs and of course his big bar apron. We obviously did his mutton chops and his hair the same color as that. Gorgonta fur for his belt and the straps holding on his apron. I also used the Gorgonta fur for the wooden plate, which of course has the bread and cheese on it, which was kind of a little bit of fun. I just kind of added little colors to those as I was going. Literally what was on my desk. I think it was Towelite Ochre was used for the first coat of the cheese, and it was the skeleton horde and Gorgonta fur for the bread one. Obviously the lighter color for the interior, and the crust on the outside was done with a darker color. Totally fine, right? Guilliman flesh was used for the skin, both hands and his face, being very careful not to color in his awesome mutton chops with that color. And then of course just a little bit of lead belcher for his tankards. They come in pints. I'm getting one. So yeah, those are just done in silver as well. Now, a lot of the colors that we were using off this palette will of course be carried over and used for Mr. Goatleaf, and you can paint both these characters at the same time. Is pretty much what I think most people will do. So when it comes to this guy, the first thing we're going to do is obviously he's wearing a jet black raincoat. So we're just going to grab out our black Templar contrast and do the hood and the whole kind of raincoat in that. It's going to be a nice simple coat, but he's quite a dark figure. It would be nice if he was kind of a different color, because obviously the bad guys they're fighting in this scenario are the ring wraiths. So you have this guy roaming around in nothing but black cloak with a hood up, and he's fighting nothing but black guys in cloaks with hoods up. So maybe that's a little bit weird, but I certainly want to go and do him in any kind of bright color. Now, obviously, we had the silver still on our palette, so we did his little lantern in that. Apart from the front section, we left that completely bare. And then obviously we had the Gorgonta fur on the palette, so we did his boots in that. We had the Guilliman flesh still on the palette, so we did his face and his hands in that. And that basically blocks in all of his base coats. He doesn't really have a lot else going. He's got like stark white hair. So when I was applying the black and the skin tones, I was just careful not to hit the scraggly hair around the side. So the grey sear I used for the spray base coat is just going to act as a really nice base coat for the hair. So with the models all blocked in, we're going to Seraphim Sepia them from top to bottom. Add as a shade. It also acts as kind of like a little bit of a varnish. I've talked about this a couple times before, but I haven't talked about it in a long time. I love all over shades, especially for someone who relies so heavily on contrast paints, because contrast paints are really, really weak. Like if you paint something with just contrast and you're like, you know, continuing to paint it, your thumb will like rub off paint from like corners and tips of swords and heads and that kind of stuff. It's happened to me so many times. It's a really irritating thing. I don't know why contrast is such a weak paint. But I find it if you throw a shade over the top of it, it almost acts like a protective varnish, even though it's not shiny. And the paint doesn't kind of wipe off anymore. So a little tip for you. Okay, I did the bases of them with some AK Interactive Dark Earth, a few dry brushes, orange and a bone, and then rimmed them black. And then it was time to start layering up all the material. So Katachan flesh was used for the nice, rich, dark cloth/leather that Barleyman has on his trousers and on his waistcoaty, smocky thing, and then his boots as well. I tend to not actually layer up the boots because the dry brush of the orange and the bone that we have, it looks really nice over the boots and it makes them look like well worn. It looks awesome. A little bit of Morn Fang Brown was used to highlight those straps that we did with the Gorgonta fur, so the ones holding up his apron and his belt going around his waist as well. I also used this color to highlight just a teeny tiny bit on the plate with the food on it. Okay, from here we are going to start working on the kind of paler colors. So we're going to work with Xandri Dust first and get his apron kind of mid-tone layered up with that color. We're also going to do this on the wraps around his ankles. There's loads of different types of these wraps and they're different things depending on different, like military army ones are called gaiters, but I think they're mostly like leather. No, are they still soft wraps? But I don't understand why Barleyman would be wearing gaiters. So I don't know what they are for him, but they're cool. They break up the model really nice, and they have the transition of color between the apron and the legs. It makes the color balance on the model a lot nicer. So I'm really appreciative of that, having like the hair the same color, the apron, and then the kind of around his shins, and then having the brown break up everything else, some nice skin tone. I think it makes a big difference. I spent a little bit of time making sure that I layered up the apron to my liking. I wanted it to look nice because it's one of the kind of key features of a model. When you look at him, it makes up like 80% of the front face of the model. So yeah. Cadian Fleshtone, Berserker Bloodshade, and Kislev Flesh are my go-to for skin. If you've been watching a bunch of my videos, you'll know that's what I like to do. So we do kind of like a heavy mid-tone with the Cadian Fleshtone, leaving a very small amount of the contrast and shade behind in the recesses of knuckles. Obviously a lot more on faces. It's all the deep recesses in mouth, around the nose, eyes. We're going to leave nice and dark. And the Cadian will go on the higher points, cheeks, chin, nose, lips, forehead, eyebrow, those kind of things. We'll get a little bit of a layer. And then on fingers, we'll go down, kind of down each individual digit, leaving the gaps nice and dark. And then we go to the mid-tone, which I like to do is the Berserker Bloodshade, because I find that the Games Workshop skin tones are usually quite pale, much more suited to an elf. I've mentioned that before, but I like. So this whole edition of a Berserker Bloodshade, which I use off a wet palette, means it's a little bit thinned, and I apply that over all the skin tones and adds a really nice little flush of warmth to the model. So that means when I go in with that Kislev Flesh for that last little bit, we're just going for those small bits, kind of tips of the nose, little bits on tops of the cheeks, some eyebrows, a little bit on the forehead and chin, and then just on like the knuckles of the fingers when you're going down. You'll see a finger actually has like 3 knuckles if you pay attention to your hand, or joints, I don't know what you want to call them, but just a touch of the color on each of those will make a huge difference and make it look really awesome. Going in with a bit of that lead belch again, just to re-highlight the tankards, making them pop a little bit. There's a few extra things we did. We took the tail light ochre again and mixed it with a little bit of the bone just to highlight the cheese. I don't think we really highlighted the bread at all. With the gatekeeper, we did grab a little bit of Ulthuan Grey and we highlighted his hair. But unfortunately, the footage on trying to get in close to his hair just didn't look great. So Ulthuan Grey, highlighted a few strands of his scraggly hair that comes out from his hood. And then I also used that Ulthuan Grey in the front of the lantern just to make it nice and bright. Ready to take a contrast to make it look a little bit like a glowing lantern. Before we got to that, obviously, Corvus Black, and we layered up that nice raincoat that he has. Obviously, once again, just following the fold. It's a very nicely sculpted model. It's very easy to layer up. You know exactly where it's meant to go. And after the white hair, which is now suddenly white, and the front of that lantern is now white, I just threw a little bit of yellow contrast in there just to make it look like a little bit of a glowing lantern. From there, we just added some super glue and some of that green moss stuff that I like to do on my Lord of the Rings miniatures. Just add a little bit more nature to it. I know Barleyman will tend to be inside his bar for most of the time, but for the scenario, he's going to be running around outside. So I decided to give them the traditional green and flock bases. I'm also playing around with the idea that if Barleyman survives, perhaps he will join the adventure. Just as a bit of a joke, but you never know. Anyway, here are the finished miniatures. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this little video. You see how Barleyman and the Gatekeeper turned out. And you're excited to see the two big scenery painting projects that we'll have to get the Bree scenario up and running. So there's two big ones and potentially a couple of small ones if I need to do some like muddy roads. I've got a lot of scenery already for houses and stuff, so maybe it'll be okay for that, but there's obviously those two big buildings, which will make a huge difference. Anyway, here's some still images of the awesome characters. And then I'm even going to throw in of kind of the 3 characters I've done so far for the scenario so you can see where we're at. Thank you guys so much for sticking around at the end of this video. I really do hope you enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to showing you the next one next week.